Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to American Defender. So today we're going to talk about the Arminus HW6. This is the first video ever done on YouTube on this model of Arminus revolver. Now, Arminus was a brand of revolver that was made by Vyrock. And they started making these revolvers in 1972, and they stopped making them at some point in time in the 1980s. Okay. This one right here is an older model. I don't know the exact date, but the cool thing about them was that they were a little snub nose like this, and they were an 8-shot 22 Magnum mostly. All right. There's not a lot of information out there about the Arminus HW6. Like I said, this is the first video YouTube's ever going to have about it. You will by far more commonly see stuff on the HW5 and the HW7, the HW38, and especially the most popular one even to this day, the HW357, which here in the States is known as the Windicator. All right. So this is actually just a baby Windicator is what this is. All right, it is a relative to the Windicator. They featured a Zamac frame, all right, steel barrel, steel cylinder, steel ejector, steel trigger, steel internals, all right. They have a two-piece assembly. It's very interesting how these revolvers go together. They're very simplistic. And they work rather well, actually. The frame and then what we'll call the grip frame are two separate pieces, which a lot of revolvers were made this way, but that's going back into like single action revolvers. If we look into this specific brand, all of your internals mount to this lower section, and then the entire piece is inserted into this upper frame of the revolver. And you can kind of see the split, what I mean. So all the way down through here, all the way down, you can see where it inserts into this frame. The frame of the actual revolver stops right here. All right, and then the grip frame comes in. Your hand ratchet stops, all of that, safeties, your transfer bar, all of that is all mounted to this grip frame and then inserted into the firearm. It's kind of an interesting way to do things because, well, it negates the need to do a side plate, which then makes the frame stronger. Now, there's a lot of folks out there that will classify these with the ROM and RG revolvers. And that's doing the firearm an injustice, in my opinion, because these are nothing like ROM and RG revolvers. Granted, all three were built in Germany. But ROM and RG, well, they were really kind of bottom-of-the-barrel guns using really cheap manufacturing methods. I mean, for crying out loud, you didn't even most of the time get a steel barrel. Whereas Vyrock has always given you a steel barrel. Okay, the RGs typically had a pressed-in barrel with a pin. The Arminus revolvers or Vyrock revolvers, the barrel actually threads in and then is pinned. Okay, so it's more like some of the older Smiths and stuff out there. So they're a much higher quality revolver than, say, ROM, RG, whatever. They're still not there with Taurus Smith, Colt, Korth, you know. They're nothing like those. They're kind of in between. I've always called Vyrock revolvers the high point of the revolver world. Okay? Because they're functional, they work, they last. I mean, this one's probably from the early 1970s. And they just keep on going. All right, they're not like the ROMs and the RGs where, you know, recently I bought, well, by recently I mean like 2-3 years ago, I bought a brand spanking new RG24 in the box. It was a rare hard find for me, but I found one. New old stock, never been opened. Box was still taped shut. The gun was even still in a bag in the box. Okay, I only got a couple hundred rounds out of that little 22 long rifle before it went out of time. All right. This one, on the other hand, I've put a ton of rounds through it already, and it just keeps on going. Plus, you know, you can tell it was carried. You can tell someone carried this. All right, somebody somewhere at some point in time in history, they loved this gun, and they they carried it because you can see the holster wear on it. All right, you can see it on there on the front, down in here, up in the cylinder here. I painted the front sight because it was starting to bleach out and blend in with everything. But yeah, we've even got wear up here on the top, all your typical places where you would have holster wear. The cool thing about this Arminus revolver is this particular one came with 2 sets of grips. All right, so you would get your long false deer horn style, grip, so that you could get a full grip on there, and it kind of has the same form factor, size, and weight as a J-frame Smith. But if you wanted to pop this thing in your pocket, you just switch the grips down to this little guy, all right? And the grip just slides on with a single screw in the bottom, and it really makes this a nice compact little 8-shot 22 Magnum. As I said, it shoots rather well, all right? It shoots very accurately for a snub nose. Especially being a budget-minded snub nose. Shoots rather well, rather accurately. The trigger on it is actually fairly smooth in both double and single action. Your double action pull on here, you notice I hold the hammer so it doesn't slam forward. All right, but the double action pull on it is probably right around the 11-pound mark, and then the single action pull is probably right around 3.5 to 4 pounds. All right, it feels very, very good. The amount of wear, other than the finish, because this is all superficial wear you're seeing, it's just finish wearing off internally, because I've had this gun all apart. And if you would like me to make a video on how to take an Arminus revolver apart, let me know down in the comments. I'm just not sure there would be much interest in it. There's really no English spoken videos on the topic. Okay, I had to figure this all out by trial and error. There is one video where a gentleman speaks Hindi, and I tried to watch that, and it didn't help me much. So, because I don't speak Hindi. Okay, so I just kind of winged it myself, and when you get it down, you know, it's actually a pretty easy revolver to take apart, especially for cleaning. And the thing that I liked about it is to get this lower separated from the upper frame of this, or the grip frame off, you have to take this little guy out. You have to take your gate release out, which works, by the way, just like a Smith. Push it forward and this slides out, or you can pull forward here and it pops out. But you have to take this little screw out, and there's a tiny spring back in here. So beware of that spring, because it will want to come flying out. It does not sit in a notch or anything. It does not have a guide or anything. It's just floating in there, all right? But you have to take that out and very carefully pull this out, all right? Once you pull this out, of course, your grips and everything come off. You have 2 pins in the frame that pop out, and then you take your cylinder off by way of this screw in the front. Cylinder, crane, everything comes off, and then you basically from there just grab it and start wiggling and pulling downward on it, and it just kind of comes down. You might have to pull the hammer back a little bit, put it in that position, and kind of bring it all out, but the whole mechanism comes out in one piece, all right? And it stays put together, other than your transfer bar that's in here, or hammer block. As you're pulling this down, I will mention this, if you guys could see it. The hammer block is actually sitting up above the firing pin right now, all right? So you'll have to push in on the firing pin and make sure that that block drops down over the firing pin, all right? It's got a little hook on the end of it, so that when I don't know if you guys are able to catch it or not. See it moving right there? I don't know how well you guys can see it moving. That comes down and it actually grabs onto the firing pin. And makes it to where the firing pin can't move. And then you also have your rebound and hammer block down in here as well. So they're a very safe pistol. Very, very safe. They're actually a very well-made pistol for what they are. All right. But you will have to push in your firing pin here and then drop that little hook, that safety down past it. Then all this just basically kind of pops out. If you do need to remove your firing pin, you will have to make a tool to do it. And I'm looking up here to see if my tool is still here. Basically what it is a screwdriver, a flat blade screwdriver, a small one with a notch cut in the middle of it. And I had to make my own because that is how the firing pin is actually held in. It has a little cap with two little slots on each side. And I can't seem to find my tool up here. I've moved all my tools. Yeah, I don't see it up here. But basically, here was one of my trials of it. All right, you can see I failed on that one. But you need a thinner screwdriver than this, just a little thinner. Little notch in it, file it in there, and you're good to go, and it'll pop right out. It's right-hand thread, so just righty-tighty, lefty-loosey pops it out. And it is important to, when you take that out, to watch for another little spring, which, by the way, is the exact same spring that goes into your gate release. Okay, they're the exact same tolerances. They're the same length, diameter, inside diameter, weight, all of that. They're the same spring, okay? So don't get them messed up. I mean, even though it really doesn't matter, just don't get them messed up, okay? But it is important, too, to get in there and clean carbon and stuff out. So eventually, you know, 1,000, 2,000 rounds, whatever, down the road, if you need to get in there and clean the carbon out, you're going to have to make that tool. It's in the world of revolvers, it's a pretty common tool that you end up having to make. So once you get all that out, though, you can clean everything, and it makes it a lot easier to work on everything as far as like removing your hand out of there and getting to springs, because you can take the rest of the revolver and set it aside and everything's just wide open to where you can get to it. So it's actually a pretty smart design internally. The good thing is you will rarely, if ever, need to get in there. I don't think this revolver was ever opened up in the probably at least 40 years that it's been in existence. I don't think it was ever opened up because I found Carbon City inside of there. So we cleaned it all out, and yeah, it's a wonder the thing was even running at all. All right, so there it is, the HW6. A little bit about it, all right, just a little bit about it. Nice revolvers, they do the job. They're not the same thing as the ROMs and the RGs and all of that, all right. They're actually a well-made revolver. As you can tell here, this one's still in existence and running just fine, and it doesn't shave lead or nothing like that. It absolutely loves the 50 grain Maxi Mag CCI rounds. And yes, parts are available for them. And this is one of the great things about Viroc revolvers, whether it's the Arminus or the Windicator, or Vindicator as it's actually called, from EAA. A lot of the parts interchange. So your mainsprings and things like that. When Viroc made this line of revolvers, they basically kind of streamlined everything to where the internals, whether you had a 22 short or a 44 mag, internally, as far as all the bits and pieces go, they were all the same. So if you got a smaller revolver like this, you got actually a pretty overbuilt revolver for the caliber. All right, so before there was the Ruger GP100, there was the Arminus revolver, because it's kind of like the poor man's GP100. It's big, it's thick, it's fairly heavy, This is just as heavy as a 38 Special J frame would be from back in the day, like a Smith, or even like a Model 10 Smith & Wesson. It's just as heavy as that. Well built, feels good in the hand, fires really well. You can't really go wrong with it. All right. So there's the video. A little bit of information about it for folks out there that are just curious. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And we'll see you around on the flip. Bye now.